the most remarkable things about watching what has unfolded in Singapore these last 8 hours or so has been thinking about how far we've come from fire and fury and from Little Rocket Man. The president, in addition to that news conference, in addition to what we saw at Sentosa Island, the president also did some interviews, including with Fox News' Sean Hannity, somebody he's done an interview or two with before. But Hannity asked him specifically about those Little Rocket Man comments and whether he regretted them. Listen.
I think without the rhetoric, we wouldn't have been here. I really believe that, we did sanctions and all of the things that you would do, but I think without the rhetoric, other administrations, I don't want to get specific on that, but they had a policy of silence. If they said something very bad, very threatening and horrible, just don't answer. That's not the answer. That's not what you have to do. So I think the rhetoric, I hated to do it. Sometimes I felt foolish doing it. But we had no choice.
Terry, do you really think Little Rocket Man, the insult, is what got Kim Jong-un to the table here?
No, it's not the insult. It's not calling him Little Rocket Man on a suicide mission or totally destroying North Korea. But it is maximum pressure policy did play a part, particularly sanctions, trying to get to pressure North Korea through sanctions and getting China to do more on the sanctions front. But also, it's really North Korea. They achieved a certain level in their nuclear and missile program, and Kim Jong-un also felt that this was a right time to sit down with President Trump because he thought this was a maximum leverage point for North Korea as well. So maximum pressure in part, but it's not insult.
Yeah. What's interesting, too, Josh, and Elise, your man said, what we got, what we gained, and what we gave up here. Because that was a real question coming into this, is how much was President Trump willing to concede, and what would he really get out of this? We saw that joint statement the two signed, basically, a page and a half, 4 bullet points and a few paragraphs here, with Kim Jong-un committing to denuclearization, complete denuclearization. Not a lot of specifics, though, on what that meant. So walk through the gains and the gives.
Right, and what was so striking, Hallie, about this military freeze announcement, and it was your question in the news conference that made the news today, was how unaware the president seemed to be that he was dropping a huge bomb into the middle of this by disclosing, not even in the joint statement with Kim Jong-un, but kind of as an after fact, oh, by the way, we're going to freeze these things, a major concession to North Korea that they've been seeking for a long time, and how he didn't seem to realize that mentioning these kinds of things, that these concessions were just something that our allies are going to be really nervous about.
Do you think he walks it back?
It's possible because we don't really know what South Korea and what the U.S. forces in Korea right now are planning to do next. As Kelly O'Donnell mentioned, U.S. Forces Korea said that we don't know whether we're going to stop the exercises, suspend the ones coming up in August, or continue to execute them. And those are the ones that really aren't so offensive, not considered a threat to North Korea anyway, because they don't include the live fire drill.
So, Sumi Terry, jump back in here, and Secretary Cohen, I'll give you a chance to respond to this as well. Where does this go from here? Where do we go next? We know Secretary Pompeo is meeting with, for example, National Security Advisor John Bolton and others next week, according to the president, after Secretary Pompeo gets back from a visit to the region here with our allies. He's going to stop in China, I believe, right? He's heading to Beijing. Sumi Terry, what happens in a week from now when we're sitting around in our set back in Washington talking through this?
Well, I think you need to really keep up the momentum. Otherwise, it's going to all fizzle out. So they're going to continue to talk to the North Koreans and try to set up a second meeting. Perhaps Secretary Pompeo will meet again or go to North Korea again, or working level officials like Ambassador Sung Kim has to meet with his counterpart, Chesney, and continually work at this. Because right now, what we have is just largely aspirational statement, and we really didn't get anything from North Korea. So we just need to keep up the momentum and continue on if we are on this engagement track.
And Secretary Cohen, if you take a look at what is in this agreement, this what the president, ever the businessman, called a contract in sort of real estate terms earlier today, I asked the same question to you. What happens next?
Well, the first thing that should happen is the president should pull out the Iran agreement that was negotiated by President Obama and look at all the things that he claimed were insufficient and wrong and bad for the country.
Yeah.
Start there and say, okay, now we're going to insist on an agreement specifically with great specificity. Here are the things that we have to do and you have to do, and don't be ambiguous about it. No lack of clarity, and then take those steps on each and every point and negotiate those down. I think he's gone about it in reverse, but he's done a number of things in reverse. But let's take this moment and say, let's go forward now and see if you can measure up to what your rhetoric has been in the past. You're going to have a great deal, much better than we had in Iran, and start with that as a baseline and then go from there.
Former Defense Secretary Bill Cohen, it is a pleasure to have your analysis and perspective here on the show. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Sumi, Terry, Josh Letterman, and Elise to stick around a bit because we have a lot of breakdowns of all the angles coming up, including what a full denuclearization of North Korea will really look like. We're talking with two people who know more about this than just about anybody else on the planet. And did President Trump just look like Kim Jong-un with the mother of all photo ops? The handshakes, the warm touches, the side-by-side U.S. and North Korean flags, all of it a propaganda push, and all of it as we wrap up a full day in Singapore and President Trump heads home on Air Force One.